This week on the show, we're talking boxing with the coach, Russ Anber. Fury versus Wilder, canceled by COVID. Usyk versus Joshua. And how about those great lightweights? Joe Tilley Sports, come on up. If you watch this program, you know that we love talking boxing on this program, and I'm very excited about today's guest. He is born in Montreal, over 40 years in boxing. He is a Q Sports junkie, self-proclaimed, a magician, founder and CEO of Rival Boxing, pro boxing advisor, manager, a pro trainer, a cut man. He's worked the corner of several world champions. He is a boxing analyst extraordinaire. Ladies and gentlemen, the coach, Russ Anber. Russ, welcome to the program.
What's going on, brother?
It's great to see you, my friend. It's great to see you. I get to see you once in a while. Yeah, man, just like old times. I get to see you once in a while in the corner of this fighter or that fighter and doing some stuff, working as a cut man. Pretty awesome, buddy. You got a good gig.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, it's almost like living a, when they say living a dream, and that's exactly what it feels like. It's like living a dream. I mean, every time I go to a venue or go to a fight, and it's a big fight, I'm there with a fighter, and it's on TV. I think about now reach the age where you start pondering your life and what it was like and how you got to this point, and I realized this is all the stuff that I dreamed of wanting to do when I was a kid. And I'm doing it now, and at this stage, and still doing it at this stage of my life, and in this game now for 42 years, working with some of the best fighters. And sometimes I got to tell you, Joe, I can't believe that it actually happened. I can't believe how fast time has flown, and I don't feel like I have worked a day in my life. And it's just. Every time someone says they're going on vacation, or they ask me if I'm going on vacation, I tell them my life is a vacation. I love so much what I do.
Yeah, it doesn't seem so much like work when you're doing what you love to do. Pinch me, right? So before we get going, I got to ask you about the magic. Can you do a little magic trick for us, Russ? Are you prepared to do something in a magician fashion?
You asked me about that, and I wanted to be able to do something, but it's very difficult in front of you here without being able to see the table or without having somebody who can pick a card for me. So I think what we're going to have to do, if we want to do this, we're going to have to do it where I have somebody else with me who can at least help out, because in order to be able to manipulate the laptop and the camera, you won't be able to see what I'm doing. So we're going to kind of lose the effect. And I don't want to do that for you, but I'm a lover of magic, and I love to do stuff like this. I think back of during our days at TSN, and it was almost a ritual for me every week to try to come up with a new trick and entertain the people there, whether it be Dutchie or the camera crew or whoever was producing on that day. It was always fun to do that stuff. And if I relate my magic, I'd love to tell this story. If I relate my magic to TSN and to a boxing story, we had Angelo Dundee, world famous trainer, trained, Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard. And although I never considered him a trainer, more as a cornerman, and in my opinion, maybe the greatest cornerman of all time. He was in Toronto promoting his book. And after we did the show on TSN, and he was on, and we interviewed him, and it was great. We took him out to dinner with, of course, the late Tony Darchie as well, who passed away this year, as you know. And Tony took him out to dinner, and we were at the restaurant, and I started to do magic tricks for him. And this is one of the greatest compliments I've ever received. Every time I did a trick, at the end of the trick, he said, Muhammad would have loved this. Muhammad would have loved this. And when he said that just, boy, it warmed my heart. And I met Ali's daughter a couple of years later, a few years ago, I should say. and I told him the story, and it meant a lot, that Angela would say that. So we're gonna have to save it for another time when I'm better prepared, because it's really gonna lose an
Okay.
effect on doing something on camera here.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. We're gonna talk a little bit of boxing next week, so maybe I'll get you to send me a little video or something like that. We
All
can
right,
run it
yeah,
then
we
as
can do
well.
that. Sure.
So, look, I like to begin at the beginning. Russ, how did you get started in boxing? I know you had a short amateur career, but tell us about your start in the game.
Well, listen, I think if I look back on it, and this is the story that I tell when someone asks me this, and I'll try to give you the abridged version and wrap up, 8 year span of my beginning into a couple of minutes. I first fell in love by boxing, or at least my first contact with boxing was in leading up to the March 1971 fight between Ali and Fraser, in which I think, for our generation, Joe, as you say, I mean, it still remains the biggest sporting event that maybe has taken place worldwide in our generation, because not only of the fact that it was a fight, but because of the social implications of that fight, of which I was not privy to at the age of 10 years old, but everybody in the neighborhood was talking about the fight. And I'm wondering, wow, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, this is the big fight. This is what everybody's talking about for the heavyweight championship of the world. And I asked my father, I said, Dad, who's going to win, Muhammad Ali or Joe Frazier? And his answer, and I'll never forget it, was, and this is what I guess triggered future thinking for me, but his answer was, doesn't matter who wins. Joe Louis would have beat both of them. So that was his answer. That was his answer, right? That was his answer.
Typ-
And
Typical old school answer. Yeah, yeah.
exactly, exactly. And then he would tell me stories about how they would listen, in those days on the radio to the Joe Louis fights. So fast forward ahead now 5 years, and now I'm 15 years old. So now I'm able to think a little bit for myself. And the Olympics came to Montreal, as you well know. And
Hmm.
back in those days, boxing was a big deal at the Olympics. And I mean, it was so big that Howard Cosell called the Olympic fights, and Howard Cosell called the amateur fights for ABC. And that's where we got to see Sugar Ray Leonard and Howard Davis and the Spinks brothers and Leo Randolph, and that that gold medal collection that they took, and the fights with the Cubans and the Soviet Union. And we saw the stories of Leonard wearing a picture of his girlfriend taped to his sock, and
Right.
Howard Davis' mother, who died 2 weeks before the Olympic Games, and he goes on to win the Val Barker Trophy for the best boxer of the Olympic Games. And Howard Cosell and ABC brought these to life. These guys became heroes in our living room. And that's when I realized, wow, I mean, I was inspired and enthralled by the stories that were told about these fighters. And during just leading up to the Olympics, one of the local radio stations here in Montreal had they called an Olympic breakfast, and Ralph Lockwood, who was the number one morning man on radio at CKGM back in the day, hosted this morning breakfast, and I wanted to be part of that. And I went down on the day when Ian Clyde was one of the guests of honor at the head table of this Olympic breakfast, and I got Ian's autograph on a picture. Ian was Canada's flyweight representative
Right.
at the Olympics,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Ian and I became great friends after that. But that's when I realized I wanted to do boxing, and it was that summer that I started training, and the following year is when I started actually working with a trainer who ended up being a teacher from my school, and he taught me, and that's where I had my first 3 amateur fights with him, and the rest is history. So that was my start and how I fell in love with boxing.
Well, you know what? It's amazing, but I think I fell in love for the same reason. I mean, I was always a Muhammad Ali fan from the get-go, but '76, it wasn't long after the '76 Olympics that I went to the boxing club for the very first time. Leonard and as you just mentioned, Howard Davis, the Spinks brothers, and Canada had a good team too. I mean, Carmen Rinke was from Alberta, right?
Yeah,
We had
Carmen.
Ian Cly. We had I think was one of the Summer Hayes boys were there a year, maybe not, can't remember.
Brian Gibson was there. Michel Briere was there. It was a good solid team.
Right.
It
Yeah.
wasn't it wasn't it wasn't the '88 team. It wasn't the '88 team.
Right.
Let's just put it that way.
No. 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 Right. Right. Right.
The
But
Canada,
yeah. Yeah, but they made some noise, and a couple made the quarterfinals, so it was a lot of fun. Now, okay, so now that how did you became a color commentator with CBC? End up working 6 Olympics. How did that come together for you?
again, another, and everything that seems to have happened to me in boxing seems to have happened of God, like when I least expect it, it happened. I mean, same thing with me becoming a trainer. Like I hadn't really fathomed that possibility. And it was only, oh, there's my buddy Scott. That's me. Look
Yeah,
at that.
yeah,
All black. I
yeah.
can't believe that. Look at that. And Scott with some hair. So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah. Even Scott had her then. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Even becoming a trainer, when I went to the gym, like you said, when you went to the gym, I went there so that I could work out and train and get some sparring and see what I could do boxing. And I met a fighter named Vinny Curto, a pro fighter. And I started hanging
Yeah.
out with him. And in a short period of time, I made like the transition that I was this guy made me believe that my analysis and my knowledge of boxing and how much I loved it was going to serve me far better as a trainer than it ever would as a fighter. And I got a late start in boxing and whatnot. And so when I started working with Vinny, I was, wow, I'm already as a trainer working with such a great fighter. I couldn't pass that up. So that's how my career in training got started, by accident, by being in the gym, talking to a pro fighter who made me believe and gave me the conviction that I could be a world-class trainer. And he ended up being right. And to this day, every time you see him, he says, "I'm your discoverer. I discovered you." So that feels kind of good. But the CBC gig was again an act of God. We had gone over to the '88 games in Seoul, and there was a group of us. Among them, Paul Horty was one of them.
Yeah.
Um,
My coach.
Kevin McDermott. I'm trying to think of some. There was someone else. Mansour Esmail. I know Mansour was there in '84. Somebody else. We were a group of trainers that had gone there to support our athletes, in which I had Howard
Harry
Grant on the
Snatic,
team.
maybe.
So what's that?
Harry Snatic was there with Willie DeWitt.
No,
But he wasn't about a
that was in
trainer so much.
84. That was 84. 80,
Okay.
88,
Okay.
88
Yeah.
when he
Right.
went.
Okay.
And we
Right.
had
Sorry.
gone
Yeah.
2 weeks before the game. We had gone to all the training sessions, and we were waiting for the Canadian Olympic Association and Boxing Canada to issue us our credentials to go to the fights. So we're waiting. Yeah, you're going to get it. We were able to go everywhere else, the training venues, like nothing was a problem. Day one of boxing comes up. We don't no accreditation for any of us, none of us. So all of us are pissed right now. Like we're all like, this is ridiculous. So each one of us went and got media from a different part of our country. So I got the media guys from Montreal. Paul Horty and company got the guys from out west, and we had like an press
Yeah.
conference, kind of denouncing the Canadian Olympic Association and how we've been here for 2 weeks and they haven't gotten us our accreditations yet or our passes to allow us access to the venue, blah, 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 And on the first day, we actually had to buy a ticket to get in. Well, when we were there having this press conference, I saw Doug Saunders, who at the time was the voice of boxing for the CBC. He had done the '84 games and now was doing '88. So I saw Doug and I said, "Hey, Doug, how are you? Nice to meet you. I'm Russ Anber. I'm Howard Grant's coach." "Oh, hey, Russ, nice to see you." I said, "Listen," I said, "who do you have doing color commentary for you guys?" He said, and Peter Wiley used to do this, but Peter didn't make the trip for some reason. I'm not sure if he had a commitment with Sean O'Sullivan at the time, but he didn't make the trip. So he said, "Well, we don't have anybody." He says, "What we're going to do," he says, "we're going to take a different member of the team each day to offer us a little insight into the team." So I said, well, listen, nobody knows this team better than me. I've traveled the last year with them. I've been on the national team for the last year. I've gone all over the world with these guys. I've been on the national team since '85. I know these guys. He says, okay. He says, you can do the first night. So the next day, which was the second day of boxing, I go to the venue. They had arranged, CBC had arranged a temporary accreditation for me to be able to get in. I had to leave my passport, pick it up, return it with my passport, etc. Go in, we do the afternoon session. So we do the afternoon session. That's my 2 hours of fame on the network of calling a couple of fights with Doug Saunders for the CBC. Shake hands, leave. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I go. Well, we come back for the evening session, and before I'm in the venue, I've got everybody looking for me. Russ, CBC's looking for you. The guy from CBC wants you. Got to go up see him. Everybody's giving me messages that they had said, if you see Russ, tell him we need to talk to him. So I go up, I make my way up to where Doug Saunders was, and I said, yo, what's up, Doug? What's the problem? He said, listen, he said, they really liked what you did, and they want to know what you're doing for the next 2 weeks. I said, what? He said, they want you to do the rest of the game. I went to the
Wow, that's
barber,
awesome.
cut my hair. I had hair down to here. I went to the barber, cut my hair off, and kind of tried to look a little respectable, and thus began 6 Olympic Games for me, and the voice of boxing in Canada, which I love. That's probably, I love that. I think that's definitely a highlight of my life, but I also love the great teams that Canada had that I got to cover during that time, and how important boxing was to the coverage of the CBC Olympic Games. And it hurts me now. It hurts me that I'm not on it, but it hurts me that Canada doesn't have that, and that we have fallen so far off the map in terms of international boxing and what we're producing. So it pains me that after all that. But 10 years of working side by side, Scott, was great. I felt like it was. I felt when Scott and I did boxing was like Ron McLean and Don Cherry. I felt that's what people recognize. I love doing it with him, and I'm glad I got to share those same kind of emotions with Dutchie when I did In This Corner, and with Bruce Rainey when I did my last Olympic Games when we were in Greece. Got to work with him, and that was a special connection as well. So I do miss that Canada and boxing has fallen off, and I'm not doing that anymore. But I love that.
Well, there is one story, I guess, out of this Canadian boxing team. Well, I mean, we got 5 boxers going over to Tokyo, or in Tokyo now, I guess. One male, Wyatt Sanford, and then the women, Caroline Vare, Miriam De Silva, Tamara Thibault, and of course Mandy Bujold. There is a story, and Mandy, fought the mighty IOC, right? She wasn't being allowed to represent Canada because she was unable to, because she didn't take part of the qualifiers that they used for the qualification procedure in 18 and 19 because she was pregnant, having her daughter Katie, and then of course she wasn't able to qualify because of COVID, so the qualifications were canceled, and she wasn't able to go. And this is a woman who's 2-time Pan Am Games gold medalist, Commonwealth Games gold medalist, been to the Olympics before. When she fought before in the Olympics, she got the food poisoning just before her bout, and lost to a woman that normally she would have beaten. It was a tragic story, really, but this is the way she wanted to cap her career. And she got a lawyer pro bono. They fought the IOC, and she won the right to go to Tokyo. So right. That's a great story. You know Manny, of course, and what are your thoughts about that? What transpired?
I'm happy that the women's program, which has become very strong in Canada, and there's a lot of effort put into it, and we're getting results like Mandy Bujold, and I'm glad that she got that, and I'm glad that Canada has succeeded in qualifying for it. But I'm equally as gutted and devastated that in a country that has produced fighters like Lennox Lewis and Howard Grant and Egerton Marcus and Asif Dar, and I can go on and on of naming great fighters that Canada has produced.
And Dale Walters,
Mark, the medalist, Dale, and Manny Sobral, and all those guys. That we have one guy at the Olympics, one fighter from a country that was at one time ranked 10th in the world. We were in the top 10 countries in the world. In 1986, Canada dominated the Commonwealth Games with, I want to say it was either 6 or 8 gold medals, or 8 guys in the finals and 6 gold medals out of a possible 12 in the Commonwealth Games. That's how powerful we were. Scotty Olsen was part of that team. This was like
Mm-hmm.
the best Canada had to offer. And sometimes with businesses, sometimes with athletes, sometimes with teams, you reach that pinnacle and you kind of try to ride that wave as long as you can, without looking to the future and continuing to build on that. And I think that's what Boxing Canada failed to do. All the politics and infighting that would go on, in boxing in Canada, and not a collective agreement to continue to be the best. And the dissension between the amateur program and the pro program, the split of keeping people out of the sport who wanted to be in the sport, all that cancer contributed to the demise of boxing in Canada overall, and that's why we only have one guy at the Olympic Games.
Well, it is a travesty, and you and I both love the sport, and we obviously want to see some change here. And they need to completely overhaul and change it, and they need to bring it back to what it was, because Canada still produces some great fighters, which we're going to get into in a little bit. But I wanted to transition now to a couple of former Olympians. You want to talk about countries that are doing well in the Olympics? Let's talk about the Ukraine, right? So two fighters that you work with now, Vasily Lomachenko and of course Alexander Usyk, guys who won gold medals for the Ukraine at the Olympics and World Championships. Uh, First, let's start with Vasily Lomachenko, three different champion as a pro, in addition to all those World Championships and all those Olympic gold medals, and Alexander Usyk. Now, Usyk, of course, he won the gold medal. He won the Olympic heavyweight championship, undisputed cruiserweight champion from 2018 until he vacated his titles in 2019. First cruiserweight in history to hold all four major world championships, WBA, WBC, IBF, and WBO at the same time. Now he's fighting Anthony Joshua in September. AJ is 24-1, 22 knockouts. Of course, Usyk is undefeated as a pro and won that gold medal. Joshua won the super heavyweight gold medal in 2012. Usyk won the heavyweight gold medal. Tell us about this fight and size it up for us.
You know what? I love Alexander Usyk. I love working with him. I've loved training with him. I've been in camp with him. I was there when he won the Ali Trophy and became undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world in a relatively short period of time. One of the nicest guys you'll meet. One of the nicest guys you'll meet in boxing. He's a lot of fun.
I'm laughing at the biz there.
Around a lot.
This is pretty funny.
Yeah, he has a good time in boxing. We have a lot of fun together. He's a good guy. And you know what? He's stepping up to a big task, facing somebody like Anthony Joshua in London, in Tottenham Spur Arena Stadium. This is going to be massive. And of course, we're going to be a massive underdog going into the fight as well. Everyone's going to expect the monster that is Anthony Joshua to be the favorite, as he should be. He's the unified heavyweight, and Usyk is moving up. But Usyk is a special breed, and even if Usyk was to lose, which can happen to anybody, I can assure you this is going to be an action, exciting boxing match that people who are going to attend will never forget they were there, because Usyk has something about him that he finds ways to win. He finds ways. And I have all the respect in the world for Anthony Joshua, because, especially coming back from the loss against John Ruiz, he proved what his character is like. He's conducted himself amongst the most intense pressure a fighter outside of Canelo has been under in years. I mean, he carries the hopes of a nation. He has a support group. He has people who love him. He conducts himself with such class, as does Usyk. And I think it's going to be a great, great event. And I'm so proud and honored to be party to it. And it's going to be a history-making moment, and I'm sure a highlight of my life. So I'm so looking forward to this fight, Joe. You have no idea.
Well, we're all looking forward to it, man. It's good to see a good fight coming up, because the other big heavyweight fight was canceled. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder 3 was supposed to happen actually
Right.
this coming weekend. Wilder 42-1 with 42 wins, one loss, one draw, 41 KOs. Fury 30-0 with the one draw, which was disputable, 21 KOs. But the thing is, I want to ask is like, should we even have this fight? I mean, to me, Fury dominated the first fight, didn't get the decision, but completely outclassed Wilder in the second fight, and proved that he was clearly the better fighter. Why do we have Fury Wilder 3 and not Fury Joshua or Fury Usyk, right?
How do I answer this? I mean, I need to answer you this in a way that the truth and the reality of what boxing is, and not just from a I wish this could have been perspective. The fact is that there was a rematch clause, and the rematch clause never says, if the fight's not so good or you lose, that the rematch clause gets thrown out. The rematch clause is the rematch clause. That's why it's in there. There has to be a certain amount of respect for the rematch clause. And then we got hit with COVID, which was a force majeure that nobody expected in the contract for it to occur. This should have been technically dealt with, if there was to be the rematch clause, should have been dealt with months ago, and we should be talking about Joshua Fury for the undisputed title. But it didn't happen that way. My only question here is, it seemed like everything was coming to fruition, that we were going to see Fury versus Joshua, but out of nowhere, the arbitrator ruled handsomely in Wilder's favor by even saying that
Yeah.
the rematch would cause Wilder irreparable harm if it didn't happen. That's a strong statement to make. How were you negotiating a fight with Fury and Joshua with the potential that such a decision could come down? Like, you must have been thinking that there's no way the arbitrator is going to go that way, and he surprised you, or you didn't have your facts in the right place, or your information was not right. But within 24 hours, the fight's done. Boom, the venue's done, and they're supposed to fight again, and they were supposed to fight this weekend, like you said. So I don't know. I don't know what happened, and it's sad, and it does throw a certain it does throw the fight into turmoil. The only guy that actually ended up benefiting from this was Usyk, because he was the mandatory
Right.
challenger to Anthony Joshua, and he wanted the Anthony Joshua fight, obviously because of the payday, first of all,
Uh-huh.
but also because of, the chance to fight as an undefeated cruiserweight champion and move up and fight for the heavyweight championship of the world. That's massive. He wanted that opportunity. So for Usyk, this turned out great for him. And, you can't knock him. He had to defend his rights as well, saying, I'm the mandatory challenger. I deserve the fight. And the beauty about Anthony Joshua is Anthony Joshua could fight, the janitor of the arena, and the place is still going to be packed, because he's such a figure. He's such a popular guy, and he carries himself with such class. That he was gonna do this. But as a boxing fan, and in sitting perhaps in your position, saying, "What fight do I want to see?" I think everybody wants to see a unified, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. We haven't had one in so long, but there is a business to boxing, and the one thing that exists in boxing, unlike any other sport in the world, is that it's a completely free enterprise system. There's no one league, there's no one governing body. It's a free enterprise system, and unfortunately, in a free enterprise system, you end up sometimes with split belts and not always getting the fights you want to get. But the sad part of, or the good part of it, is that you do get the fights, and people can go from one promoter to the next, or one title to the next, for money. Whereas in some other sports where you only have that one league to play in, or UFC is your only option for MMA, you're handcuffed. You can't do anything about it. You've either got to fight for what they tell you to fight, or you're off the map. And sadly, happily, that's not the case in boxing. So one person's misfortune, in this case, Joshua not fighting Fury for the undisputed title, becomes another person's good fortune in Usyk fighting Joshua for two belts on the line,
Right.
and having a chance heavyweight champion. So
Right, and he's got a shot, right? He's got a puncher's chance. He's got a
oh
shot. I
yeah,
mean, if Usyk pulls this out, it's not a. I mean, Andy Ruiz won the title, right? Andy Ruiz beat Joshua, and nobody saw that coming, right? So anything could happen. But you
no,
want to talk about fights not happening? Let's move on to another fight that's not happening. Errol Spence Jr. is not getting Terence Crawford, but he's getting Manny Pacquiao. Uh, August 21st, we're going to see Errol Spence Jr.'s 27-0, 21 knockouts against Pacquiao, who's now 42 years old, 62, 7-2, 39 knockouts. Now, it seems like a tough fight for a guy like Pacquiao to take, right? He was a guy who started his career as a featherweight, right? So, or maybe even a bantamweight, I can't remember. Anyway, but he's never ducked anybody, never been one to duck anybody. And a lot of his wins have come against, future Hall of Famers like Oscar De La Hoya and Ricky Hatton and Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales and Miguel Cotto, Shane Mosley. I mean, Manny Pacquiao never has ducked anybody, but now he's fighting a guy who's in his prime. What do you think happens here in August?
well, again, this is a case of the politics of boxing and the business of boxing that has caused this to happen. They certainly are not doing.
Oh, you dropped out, Russ.
We lose
Okay.
you here. Are you still
No,
here?
you're
You
back. You're
still
back.
here?
No, you're back. Yeah,
Okay.
you're back. You're good. Yeah, yeah. Sorry,
They
continue.
they're not giving Pacquiao any favors in the twilight of his career by giving him somebody as good and as talented as Errol Spence. But then again, Pacquiao has always fought great guys and will continue to do so. So I think it's a great fight to happen. Is it? And I think from an Errol Spence perspective, the money that a fight versus Pacquiao will generate because of Pacquiao is more lucrative than a fight against Crawford, who, by the way, fights for another promoter in Top Rank. Whereas this is a PBC show, it's an in-house, two fighters fighting. The promoter makes money from both fighters. They don't have to split the expenses with somebody else. They're doing it. So I understand, again, the business of boxing, which sometimes leaves fans with a bitter taste in their mouth. It's just the reality that Errol Spence fighting Manny Pacquiao, two guys promoted by PBC, is more lucrative than fighting a dangerous fight against Terence Crawford, who was promoted by Top Rank, and you have to split the promotions. You got to do everything. It's just an easier fight to make. And I'll tell you what, if Pacquiao should win against Errol Spence, I think PBC comes out on top both ways. But Pacquiao just continues, the legend just continues to grow. And you genuinely, even now, you genuinely must speak of Manny Pacquiao in the same breath that you speak of the legends of boxing, the way we would talk of the old days of a Roberto Duran or a Henry Armstrong or Joe Louis or Sugar Ray
Sugar Ray
Robinson or
Robinson.
Willie Pep. Yeah, you have to speak of Manny Pacquiao being part of that elite group of legends in boxing, because to look at his record and see the guys that he's fought and the results he has had over weight classes starting earlier as a bantamweight, even smaller. He was a flyweight, 106 pounds, all the way up to 154, is truly remarkable. And should he beat Errol, in which he's going to damn well give it his best shot, don't think he's going in there. Don't let age fool you on this one. Wow. What a career. What a career.
Well, that I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I just love to see I love to see Pacquiao fight. I mean, there's so much adrenaline whenever he fights, and so many people in his corner, right? It's incredible. But I want to
Absolutely.
talk a little bit before we go about the lightweight division, which has to be considered. It reminds me of the welterweight division back in the early '80s. When we had Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard and Duran fought in that division, and you know, there's tons and tons of great fighters, and then up to middleweight to bring Marvin Hagler into it. But right now, you've got so many incredible, great lightweights. Teofimo Lopez, who fought your guy, Lomachenko. Now, in that fight, I was a little bit surprised that Lomachenko took so long to get going. It seemed like he was giving away the first 6 rounds of that fight. What happened to Lomachenko that night? I know you were in his corner.
Yeah. Look, unfortunately, he went into the fight um, after having suffered a serious shoulder injury, and he didn't want to call the fight off. His father wanted the fight off. Management wanted to call the fight off. Lomachenko refused to call the fight off. He was going to fight no matter what, and he was going to go through with it. And he did. It took him a while to get going. He knew how dangerous Teofimo was. He knew the power that Teofimo possessed. And Teofimo fought an extremely smart and calculated fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think Loma might have expected Teofimo to be more active and busier and expend more energy in the early rounds. And Loma was trying to bring that out of him, you know, by doing nothing, waiting and doing nothing, trying to get Lopez. And Lopez remained conservative, did what he had to do, and started putting rounds in the bank. Well, when Loma came back to the corner at the end of the 6th, you know, his father said, you know, we got to get going now. And I told Egis Klimas, the manager in the corner, I said, we're behind. We got to get going now. You know, like we've lost too many rounds here. And he started coming back. And think of the magnitude of this, Joe, that you can give a guy like Teofimo Lopez, arguably the 6 first rounds, or maybe 5-1.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe 5-1.
Yeah.
And then come back. And dig yourself out of that hole round after round. That shows just how great you are. This is not coming back against a mediocre opposition. This is coming back against one of the best fighters and best prospects and hardest punching guys in the world. And you start to come back into the fight and forget what the official cards were. The official cards were a disaster. I listened to what real fighters said. I listened to what Andre Ward said. I listened to what Roy Jones said. I listened to what Terrence Crawford said. I listened to what the real fighters and the people I talked to in the business had that fight. And everybody either had it a draw if you gave Loma the 2nd round in the fight. That was the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Who would think that the 2nd round of a fight is the swing round? But that's the round that if you give to Loma, you have to score the fight a draw. If you don't give it to Loma because it was a close round, then the fight ends up being 7-5 in favor of Teofimo Lopez. And that's a fight that begs for a rematch. You know, that begs the rematch, that a guy, #1 pound for pound fighter in the world, goes into a hole for 6 rounds and comes back and makes it almost a draw and almost ekes it out. So, you know, he is a great talent. And I hope that rematch happens again. And like you said, the division is full of so much depth, you know, that there's so many great fights that can be made. And it's sad that we're not seeing them. It's sad that we're not seeing them.
Well, we're going to see, instead of, like, I don't know why there wasn't a clause in Lomachenko's contract to demand a rematch for that fight. It only made sense to me that they would negotiate something like that.
That's the $1 million question that I've been unable to get an answer to as to why there wasn't. Overconfidence. I don't know. What, too much money. I don't know what the reason was. That certainly begs the question of why that wasn't there, because that should have already happened. But George Kambosos is the mandatory. So maybe even if there was a rematch clause, the Kambosos fight would have had to happen, because he would have been obligated to fight his mandatory, and then they would have jumped in. So basically, although there was no rematch clause, I think it's still a fight that's going to happen, because after the mandatory, Lopez versus Lomachenko is the biggest fight Lopez can really make. I mean, that's a bigger fight monetarily than him moving up to 140 and challenging Josh Taylor. You know, so even if he
we lost you again, Russ. Are you still there? Yeah. Keep going,
yes,
buddy.
I'm still here.
Just
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Go
okay.
Yep.
So I don't think Taylor generates the money that Lomachenko generates. So even without the rematch clause, from a business perspective, if Lopez is to be successful in a very tough fight against Kambosos. But if he gets by that fight, the big money fight for him is the rematch with Lomachenko, because Lomachenko's still the name and still carries the draw power and brings the money to the table.
And there's, Kambosos, 19-0, or sorry, 19-0 with 10 KOs. The guy can scrap. In
Yeah.
addition to this, in addition to the fighters we talked about, you've also got in this division Ryan Garcia, who's only 22 years old, 21-0, 18 knockouts. Devin Haney, 22 years old, 26-0, 15 knockouts. Tank Davis, only 26 years old, 25-0 with 24 KOs. Huge knockout power in this guy. That uppercut against Leo Santa Cruz was unbelievable. He coming off a knockout win over Mario Barrios. Jojo Diaz, he's 32-1-1 with 15 knockouts. He's coming off a unanimous decision over Javier Fortuna. Isaac Cruz Gonzalez, 22-1, 15 knockouts. I mean, Michael Rivera, 21-0, 14 knockouts. Roman Andreev, an older guy, but guy's been around a little bit. 25-0 with 17 knockouts, all in the lightweight division. You mix those guys up, we could have like what we saw back in the 80s, right? With all those great fighters fighting each other again and again and again. Can this happen?
Joe, this is the part that gets me. This is the part that stomachs me. That, I mean, you cannot imagine. I don't even have the vocabulary to express my disappointment in this. In that all these great guys, how is it that on your rise up to where you are now, you never fought any of these guys? These guys never fought each other. Like, what are we waiting for? It doesn't make sense. It's almost like these guys are happy to be the prospect that they are, have their little network of fans that love them, and they don't care if they have to fight the other great guys in the division. It seems like they find other people to fight or recycled guys to fight. And how is it that these fights are not being made? It's insanity that these fights are not happening. I don't get it. And it's the part of boxing that has always and will always continue to disgust me, that we have a division that you just rattled off names. And when was the last time you had a division of top 10 contenders with not even a handful of losses,
Right.
between the top 10 guys, and they haven't fought each other?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Yeah. 10
Go
guys
take a
count
look
their
at
losses
Leonard.
on one hand.
Yeah, that's right. Go take a look at Leonard's record of the guys he fought, and how quickly he fought Benitez and Hearns and Durant twice.
Right.
Boom, 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 right after one after the other. Look at Tommy Hearns. The way I just don't get it. I don't get why this is happening, and this is part of again the free enterprise system that I spoke to you about earlier. This is one of the downfalls of that free enterprise system, in that, and now it's become that the networks are the ones controlling. They've become the magnets in this, and they're the ones controlling, not even the promoters anymore. Back in the day, you could blame King or Aram when fights weren't happening. Now it's the networks that are stopping fights from happening, because they want to keep the guy they have. They wrap him in cotton wool, and that's who they want to protect, and they don't let him fight the other guy because he's with another promotional group, and that's what's sad. It's very disappointing that great talent is not fighting each other.
What an unbelievable lightweight tournament we could have. It just would be unbelievable. It could
Oh,
really put boxing in the mainstream of the sports conscience everywhere. I'm telling you, it's that kind of a
absolutely,
opportunity. Instead, we get
absolutely.
Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul. What?
Yeah. What the thing is, as much as I would like to trash that, the only reason that happened, the only reason it was able to happen, the only reason that the money was there was because somehow in this era that, Joe, I can't explain it. You'd be a better man than me if you can. But that somebody could gain such popularity being a YouTube star that he gets his people to pay tremendous amounts of money to bring Floyd Mayweather out of retirement to do a sparring session with him, and people paid in the millions to watch this. I don't know what my brain is short circuiting to try to understand this. I don't get it. I just don't get it. There's lots of guys of the caliber of a Logan Paul who would happily have done what he did against Mayweather. You know, they'd be happy to do that,
Yeah, yeah.
and they couldn't draw 10 people. This guy is not even a boxer. He's a YouTube star, and he drew millions of dollars worth of fans. I'd love to be able to sit here and knock him, but how can you knock somebody who has generated? He didn't steal the money. People paid to watch it. He did something to gain popularity that people paid to watch him, and even think that he might have had a shot at beating a Floyd Mayweather, you know? And they were able to do it. Listen,
somebody thought that.
Yeah, somebody thought
somebody
that.
thought that. Before we go to, I want to touch a little bit on the Canadians because we got a few good Canadians, and matter of fact, Cody Crowley's going to be on the show next week. The kid who's 19-0 from Peterborough just got himself a shot at the WBA interim title. He's fighting Gabriel Mastre of Venezuela next month in Minneapolis. So, good for Cody. But that is a tough division for, Canadian fighters. You look at the welterweight division, Stephen Butler, Brandon Cook, Custio Clayton. There's some pretty good Canadians in that welterweight division. Custio, that lost to Sergey Lipinets, right? He was robbed. Or it was not a loss, but a draw.
A
Majority draw.
Yeah. But that's another thing, Joe, when we look at that, the amount of Canadian fighters that are here and are each carving their own path internationally to a fight, and none of them have claimed national supremacy. They have not fought each other. They refuse to fight each other, put those matches together. They each kind of go on their own little road and avoid each other when these are fights that could be made in Canada, and they could fight each other and determine the one king that could come out of there to get the big shot, and they're not. Everybody's trying to travel their own little road, and never the twain shall meet, and that's bad. And I've seen that. We saw that happen here in Quebec, in which, it used to be mandatory that you had to be the king of Quebec before you could leave and fight somebody else, and you were able to make those matches, whether it was Eddie Mello against Fernand Marcotte or Nicky Furlano against Gaetan Hart or, Willie Featherstone or anything. They fought Ralph Hollett from the Maritimes fighting Mello. Like, you had to establish yourself as king of the country before you were able to venture out and say you want to fight for a Commonwealth title or a world title or whatever. And now it doesn't happen. And you just made a perfect example of a great fighter like Cody Crowley, undefeated. How would have one of the Canadians on his record? How has Custio not fought Cody? How have these fights not been made when they're all of the same ranking, if you will? That these are legitimate fights that could be made. And it would be interesting. I don't know what Cody, I'd love to hear Cody's response. So chalk that up to a question you ask him tomorrow as to why these matches, where you could generate revenue and both guys Canadian fighting each other, why those fights haven't been made. I'd really love to hear what he has to say and offer a little insight into why those fights haven't happened.
We'll definitely ask him that one for sure, Russ. Because also in that division, you've got Devin Reddy, Kane Herron, Jesse Wilcox, all undefeated. Cruiserweight, I don't know if you have had a chance to see him fight yet. Ryan Rizicki, a kid from Sydney, he's 13-0. Devastating power. That kid can really rock you. I'm telling you, I've seen a couple of his fights. How's Simone Keane do it? Okay,
I saw him as an amateur. Yeah. I know him very well.
How's Simone Keane looking these days? Simone
trying to
Keane,
stay active.
Simone in Quebec. Yeah.
Staying active. There's talk about him wanting to fight Oscar Rivas. We'll see if that'll come to fruition or not. But the Quebec fighters are doing their best to try to stay active. I don't know what it means in matching them up with other Canadian guys. I don't really know what's going on in the promotional scene in Quebec, spending so much time abroad. I don't really know what's going on here, so I can't tell you factually, but I know Eye of the Tiger are putting on fights all the time. They just had a show in Shawinigan last week when they couldn't run shows in Quebec because of the restrictions. They were making their fighters fight. They were running shows in Mexico where they were able to get their fighters in and fight. So, congrats to them.
Yeah, Patrice Volney was down there. I think he fought in Mexico not that long ago.
Correct.
He's another guy to watch for. 15-0, 9 knockouts. Jukambayev, 18-0, light welterweight. Zoltaranyi, 15-0. Lightweight, we got Golden Garcia, Josh O'Reilly. We got a lot of good Canadian fighters out there to watch for these days. Is there anybody that I haven't mentioned that sticks out for you?
The guy that transplanted Russian that we're looking for big things for is Arslanbek Makhmudov. He's a giant of a man. He's a devastating puncher. He's certainly ready to make waves in the heavyweight division. I think you're going to love watching him fight. That's at least one guy that's fair to say that the other Canadian heavyweights might be steering clear of him, understandably so, because he's on a next level. He's kind of like of the better Biev kind of level. He's fast tracked to a world title shot, and I think that'll happen for him shortly. But in the other divisions, all those guys you mentioned, the great Canadians that are out there now, a lot of them with great records, great fighters. I mean, it seems to stand to reason that you can put on an all-Canadian card, not have to worry about COVID restrictions, put these guys together, let them fight, let the king who comes out of that be on top and go on to a world title.
Arthur Barslanov, I forgot about him as well. Yeah, Barslanov.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So okay, let's talk a little bit about Rival Boxing Gear. Your company, the company you started. Great gear. You see it everywhere. You got top of the line gloves, shoes, headgear, focus mitts. Tell us about the company, how that all got started, and some of the fighters you had a chance to work with as a result.
Well, Joe, I appreciate you mentioning that. It's not necessary for you to do that, but I appreciate that. I mean, Rival was born almost for me from a necessity. When I've been selling boxing equipment since 1985, and I used to represent. I introduced Ringside to Canada. I had the concession, if you will, the distributorship for a brand new company that started in the States called Ringside. They had a little 3-page catalog, and I loved their equipment. And I said, I want to introduce that to Canada. And, I formed a company called Ringside Canada, and we started selling Ringside equipment. And I did this as a means, not to sell equipment, but as a means to finance and allow me to continue my coaching career and subsidize my gym and the travel that I would do with the fighters to the amateur tournaments and lead us all the way up, to the Olympic Games and to the things that, the big tournaments that our fighters went on, Golden Gloves and Canadian Championships and whatnot. So that's why I started selling equipment. It was just a means to an end that I'd go to tournaments, I'd take all my equipment with me and set it up and sell it. Well, Ringside outgrew Russ Amber, if you will, and decided they didn't need me anymore. So they got rid of me, so we don't need you anymore. And at the same time, I had a gentleman who came to see me. He was a vendor, manufacturing equipment, was in Montreal, and got my name from somebody. They asked him, we make boxing equipment. Who here does boxing? And the guy...
Oh, we lost you again, Russ. Are you still there?
I, told him what my plans were and that I had a thought of wanting to create my own brand. And my brother is the one who actually came up with the name Rival, but I told him I want to do Rival, and I showed him the drawings I had made, some of the technology I had envisioned, or the designs that I wanted to implement, which I saw as a fight guy. I saw things that I needed. I wanted things designed a certain way. And I explained this whole story to him, and he told me, no problem, we can do it for you, and all you have to do is buy 1 container full of equipment. And that kind of killed the deal right there. And I said, I'm sorry, I said, I'm not in a position right now to be able to afford a container. I said, but if I do, you'll be the first I call. Shook hands, and he left. The next day, I get a call from downstairs. I'm upstairs in the mezzanine. I get a call that said, Mr. Tariq is here to see you. Okay, I wasn't expecting him. He came back. Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Tariq. What happened? He said, Mr. Russ, I don't sleep last night. I said, why? He says, because I'm thinking about Rival. And I think all the things you're talking about, I think you will be great success. Okay, he says, give me an order. Doesn't matter how big it is, and I'll make it for you. I said, Mr. Tariq, I said, I have $2,000 to my name. He says, I'll take it. Tell me what you need. And I said, if you do that, I said, I promise you every order after that will be for more. Maybe only $1 more, but it'll be for more. And he said, okay, and I gave him the order, and thus was born Rival Boxing Gear.
Can you give us a little bit of an idea how much we're talking about now? How's that working out now?
Well, now we're bringing in upwards of, I want to say we're probably close to 10 to 15 containers a year for all our branches. You know, in Canada, we have we've opened up 5 branches, Canada, USA, UK, Australia, and the next one that's coming is France. They're actually working, but it's not up fully operational yet. We're still doing renovations on the store. That kind of got delayed a little because of COVID, but we're still selling in France. But right now we have 4 official Rival. I own 4 official Rival locations around the world, and you know, touch wood. I hope this desk is wood. You know, we're doing well, and we've done it basically. The reason, Joe, that the best reason I can tell you of why we've had this success, and it's the only reason I can think of that makes sense, because you know me, and I'm not a businessman by any stretch of the imagination. I got no formal education, and unlike other companies, which are businessmen trying to infiltrate the boxing world, I'm a boxing guy trying to infiltrate the business world. And I think being a boxing guy and being in the game for as long as I've been, I think gave us credibility. And I think the important thing and the most important decision we made when I started the company was the first pieces of equipment that we were going to manufacture were going to be for high-end, professional level athletes, because I'm in the game. I can't start a company making low-end equipment and having my fighters, my pros, my top flight amateurs wearing another brand while I'm trying to hawk a low end brand. So it was really important that we make a high end brand. And you cannot imagine the difficulty of a company from Canada trying to infiltrate the US market base, you know, of which there are companies there that have been there for 100 years, infiltrating a boxing market, which is predominantly Latino, if you will. And we're from Canada trying to infiltrate that. And the only way we were going to be able to do it was to really make a piece of equipment that took people's notice, you know, that people noticed and realized, wow, this is good. And they kind of, when they saw that, they kind of saw past the fact that it was a Canadian-made product, that we only know how to make hockey equipment, you know, don't know anything about how to make boxing equipment, you know, and they saw past that. And thanks to making a good product, our reputation has grown. And listen, the fighters chose to wear it, you know, and that's my biggest compliment, is that the fighters have chose to wear our gloves. And I hope that continues for a long time. And I hope we continue to make the stuff that the fighters choose to wear. They reach out to us and say, Russ, I want to try your glove. I want to use your glove. And they use it. And, you know, we had Lomachenko pretty much for his entire career. And it was only after he became a star and started being solicited by other companies who were willing to pay for him to wear their stuff, he wore our stuff because he loved it. And that's one of my proudest moments, is that he wore it because he loved it, as does Usyk, as does Anthony Joshua. Those are just to name a few. Arthur Beterbiev, you know, these are some great names in boxing that have worn our gloves and have made me very proud.
Yep, a lot of good Canadian boys doing it too. That's awesome. Russ, listen,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for being on the show. That's a great Canadian success story, and you are a great Canadian success story in many ways. As a guest on the show, you received this certificate from another quality organization, Classica Imports, fine Italian menswear. Give Jeff a call and he'll hook you up. Next time you're in Toronto, let me know and we'll set you up. Before we go, I want you to do this, Russ, if you don't mind. Give me your best. I'm Russ Anber. Joe Tilley Sports coming up.
I'm Russ Anber. Joe Tilley Sports coming up.
Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com. Do you know why that happened? You didn't fix your ball mark. The birds around here are very protective of the course, and when people don't take care of it, this is what happens. It's pretty simple. Just find your mark, fix it, and at least one other. Hey, look at the bright side. We're not up on the northern course. They've got bears and moose. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to hpibet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's hpibet.com.
We were going to say goodbye to
Joe,
Russ, but Russ, you got one more thing to say?
I had to tell you this because this is so ironic that, you know, your generous offer for clothing. You know very well my dear friend and two-time world champion and now one of the best trainers in boxing, Buddy McGirt. You know Buddy, right?
Yes. James Buddy McGirt.
Buddy McGirt.
Good fighter.
James Buddy McGirt. Whenever he introduces me to somebody or talks to me about somebody, the line he uses is, I'd rather clothe him than feed him. So you've clothed me instead of fed me. So you must have talked to Buddy. You got me some clothing instead of feeding me.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Well, look, dinner is going to be included next time you're in town. Let me know, okay?
Oh, I'll take you up on that, brother. You got it. You got it. Thank you so much for having
thank
me,
you,
Joe.
sir. Yeah.
Stay well.
Thanks again, Russ. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, time now for my COSA Swiss pick of the week. You know, last week we were at Mohawk for Tuesday night's 7th race, a pacing event. I took the number 5 horse, Cinderella's Delight, but she got stuck along the rail and she just never fired. Cat, the 4-5 favorite with Phil Huron in the buggy, won it easily for trainer James Dean and the Mackenzie. The 6-1 exactor would pay $27. All right, this week I'm going to go to Thursday night's 10th race at Mohawk, and we like the number 9 horse, Prince. The Prince, who should be able to overcome that outside post. The Prince has already won at this level before. I've had a couple of tough weeks. My record on the year now is now 6 wins, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, 5 fourths, 4 fifths, 6, 2 eighths, and a 10th. Ooh, gee. For all the racing updates, visit COSA TV on Facebook and go to hpibet.com for your wagering options. Well, it didn't look good for the Milwaukee Bucks when they dropped the first 2 games of the NBA Final in Phoenix, but momentum matters in pro sports. The Bucks got that mojo back when the series shifted to the land of the deer, and they never let it go. 4 straight wins and an unbelievable MVP effort by Giannis Antetokounmpo. 3 40-plus point games, including a smooth 50 in the clincher as the Bucks wrap up their first title in 50 years. 50 points, 50 years, coincidence? I think not. First player with 50 points, 10 or more rebounds, 14 actually, and 5 blocks in a playoff game.
When you re-signed your contract, your extension, I'm sure it was with this in mind. Well, could you imagine it happening for you the way that it's happened?
No, man. No. Man, I couldn't live. You know, there was a job that had to be finished. You know, I feel like the Bible did not pay us justice. You know, we give credit to Miami. He played great, but he did not pay the justice. Like, everybody was feeling homesick. We're a family-oriented team. We wanted to see our families. But, you know, coming back, I was like, this is my city. You know, they trust me. They believed in me. They believed in us. Even when we were lost, the city still was like on our side. And, you know, obviously I wanted to get the job done. You know, but that's my stubborn side. Like, it's easy to go somewhere and go and win a championship with somebody else. It's easy. I could go, I don't want to put anybody in the spot, but I could go to a super team and, you know, just do my part and win a championship, still win. But this is the hard way to do it, and this is the way I chose to do it. And we did it.
He did consider Toronto, and remember that horrible knee injury in the conference finals. Man, he's come back from that, and just good for Giannis. Well, the Leafs pulled off the last-minute swap before the Seattle Kraken expansion draft. The Buds grabbed Jared McCann from the Penguins for prospect Philip Hollander and a seventh-round pick in the 2023 draft. McCann, he's a former first-round draft pick by the Canucks in 2014. He had 14 goals, 18 helpers with a career best, plus 17 in 43 regular season games with the Penguins. This season, the Leafs have unveiled their preseason schedule, and guess what? The first of 6 games for the Leafs will take place September 25th at Scotiabank Arena against the Montreal Canadiens. All right. Looks like the Jays have pretty much wrapped things up in Buffalo. Their next homestand will be at the Rogers Center. Finally. But it was a nice send-off. Vlad Guerrero Jr., the All-Star Game MVP and potential league MVP, slugged a pair of home runs in a rout over Texas to kick off a weekend series. Jr. hit the 30-home mark. They ended up sweeping the Rangers. Feels good against their old nemesis. Lourdes Gurriel with a grand slam in the series finale. The Jays have enjoyed their time in the Queen City, but they might be even better in the home barn. We'll see. Well, great to see fans at a sporting event in Toronto again. TFC back in town for the first time in 16 months. Jose Altidore back in the lineup. A home coaching debut for Javier Perez. All that in a 1-1 draw with Orlando. It kind of felt like a win, though. And 7,000 lucky fans got to attend the game, enjoy it. Lots of them being healthcare workers, lots of those being frontline healthcare workers, and that's really good to see. Good for them, good for the organization. All good. Well, we can't be completely surprised that Colin Morikawa came through with the clutch effort at the British Open. The guy was ranked 4th in the world heading in. He had won a major before, and somehow he was listed at 40-1 by William Hill. That was a bargain. By the way, Ken Shaw had some of that. He won the Open Championship pool here on Joe Tilley Sports. He picked Morikawa, Rahm, and Oosthuizen. Nicely done. Great job by Mac Hughes. The long shot picked by both Rod Black and I, by the way. Mac was a solid 6th. That's the highest finish ever by a Canadian at the British Open. We close now with a look at the folks who made this show possible. Friends, trusted business associates, all-around great people. I highly recommend them all. And a reminder that Joe Tilley Sports is now available on Spotify. Yes, indeed. Catch all the former Joe Tilley episodes on Spotify. We got them all up there now. Getting up, well, a lot of them up there anyway. And all of them will be up shortly. Thanks once again to Russ Anber for being on the program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week when Clint Malarchuk drops by. What a story he is. We'll see you.
Get Aldo at Remax Crossroads. Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit www.getaldo.com to find out what next-level real estate looks like. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today, and let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. Brought to you by MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business consulting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the needs of our clients in the private, public, and non-for-profit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to doing business and personalized strategies to help people and organizations succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Toronto, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, our team is here to support you. Visit MNP.ca to learn more.